Thank you. Welcome to the September Cabinet. I have apologies from Dawn Hoosman, who has a Deputy Group Leader, Brendan Mallon, attending instead. Welcome, Brendan. All of the Cabinet here, so I have no more apologies. We have a number of people attending remotely, which, as you can see on screen. So could I have any declarations of interest, please? Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. Item 14, the Spark Decarbonisation Project, because I'm a trustee of the Spark charity, which is making a donation.
And I will join Ruth with that same declaration of interest because I'm also a trustee of Spark. Any more declarations, David Walker?
I'm a member of Westfeld Parish Council, so when the item 15 comes up, I'll leave the room for that.
Thank you. And James?
I'm a member of Oswestry Town Council, but as the report is just a scrutiny decision, I will not be leaving the room.
Item 6. Thank you. That's all of those declarations. Then we'll move on to the minutes to confirm from the 9th of July as a correct record.
Happy to propose.
I'll second that. Thank you. Are we all in favour of that? Super. They're now adopted. So we now move on to the public question time. We have 3. And the first one is Graham Betts. And I think Tim Collard will read this out for us. It's about the bus service at Darwin's Walk in Bowbrook.
Thank you, Leader. His question is this. In section 6.6.8 of the Officer Report for Planning Application 13/03285 concerning Darwin's Walk and Bowbrook housing developments in Shrewsbury, it is stated that the road is designed to accommodate a bus service and a subsidy has been negotiated with the developer. That subsidy is quoted as £519,480 in section 6.9.1. The SIL, etc. accounts provided using a Freedom of Information request state that the bus service should start within 3 years of the link between Hamwood Road and Midnote Road being completed. The stated completion date is 2019. The service should have started by 2022 at the latest, and therefore the first bus is 3 years late. These accounts also state that the sum now available is now £0 and £33,020.93 has been spent without a bus being provided. It is assumed that that sum has been used to subsidise other bus services that do not pass through the development. On the basis of the above, it appears the residents of Darwin's Walk and Bowbrook developments have paid significantly for a service that the council has not provided. The money is lost, and another bus service not mentioned in the officer report has been subsidised by those residents. Can the Cabinet please explain these anomalies, why the stated bus service does not exist, when it will be provided, and where is the money paid by residents for the service?
Thank you, Mr. Collard. I have Councillor Rob Wilson answering the question.
Thank you, Mr. Betts, for the question. Officers in the Council's Passenger Transport Group can confirm they have started to draw down the allocated Section 106 money to the amount of just over £33,000. And this is currently being used to support the local bus service 20 operated by Lakeside Coaches. It is acknowledged that whilst this does not run through development, it does pass by the junction of Red Deer Road and Hamwood Road, with a stop approximately 100 metres from this junction. All current allocated money is being used in accordance with Section 106. And I would just add, I'm sure Mr. Betts will have other more detailed questions. I'm happy to put him in touch directly with the passenger transport team.
Thank you. I think that may well be useful. I hope we can let Mr. Betts know. Super. Thank you. The next question is from John Palmer, who is with us today. And this is about affordable housing. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair.
420 affordable homes were completed in 2024-25, well above target. This information comes from Delivery of Affordable Homes, paragraph 4.1 of the Performance Monitoring Report, quarter 1, 25-26, which is agenda item 10 today. Whilst prominently highlighting and celebrating this, does the Cabinet wish to accelerate these numbers and move heaven and earth to fulfil the government's sea change target of 1,994 new homes a year in the council area? That figure sourced from BBC Verify Housing Tracker online. Younger people want and need much more new housing, and surely helping move earth and creating heaven and defying the NIMBYs would build on these impressive affordable home stats. Only 1,110 new homes in the area received their first energy performance certificate in the year to June 2025, once again from the BBC Verify Housing Tracker. We have a housing crisis. Are you going to help fix it?
Thank you for your question and for recognising the significant progress made in delivering affordable housing across Shropshire Council area. We are proud to confirm that the 420 affordable homes were completed in 24-25, well above our original target. This achievement reflects the Council's commitment to addressing housing need and supporting residents across our communities. It also demonstrates the effectiveness of our partnerships. However, we fully acknowledge that this is only part of the picture. The government's updated housing target of 1,994 new homes per year for Shropshire, as highlighted by BBC Verify, represents a substantial increase from previous expectations. Meeting this target will require a coordinated and ambitious response, not only from the Council, but also from developers, infrastructure providers and national government. We're in the early stages of preparing a new local plan, which will need to respond to the government's new mandatory housing figures, calculated using the national standard methodology. In seeking to respond to this new housing challenge, the Council's local plan will propose policies to secure that an appropriate percentage of this is affordable housing to support locally identified needs. Further to this, we are actively reviewing our housing strategy to ensure it aligns with the emerging Shropshire plan and reflects the new administration's priorities. Finally, while we are committed to increasing housing supply, we must also ensure that growth is supported by appropriate infrastructure, schools, transport, utilities and health services. This is a shared challenge and will continue to work with partners and government to secure the necessary investment.
I will actually just gate crash that and say we will also be looking at exception sites across the board, because exception sites will also deliver affordable housing for us. And in fact, I have two going ahead now in my division. We now move on to the third question, which is from Ollie Rose, who is also here, and is about the pump track in Oswestry.
I'm pleased to see the report on item 6A, the pump trap in Oswestry. Having worked for years to secure this, it's the first time it's been on a SUC Cabinet agenda. It would be remiss of me not to remind the Cabinet that this is an urgent matter. As well as the great need for young people's health and well-being, damage is being done to the Oswestry Hill Fort and to the adjacent coppice, and that's one reason why there's strong support from the community, English Heritage and Oswestry Town Council for this provision, the construction of which could be funded by the Town Council. A new, accessible to all pump track skateboard park has the potential to be a great demonstration of partnership working between the parish and Shropshire councils, but only if you seize the initiative and make rapid progress now. So can I have a reassurance from the portfolio holder that Shropshire Council will proceed at pace and not continue to bank this land in the hope that at some stage in the future it will have the finances to develop it. That's been the situation since you first got planning permission in 2008, and it would be good to hear his agreement that as this hasn't worked in the last 17 years, it needs this change.
And I will ask Councillor James Owen to reply to you. And you will have seen there's an item on the agenda today as well.
Thank you for coming and asking your question. And as Heather just alluded to, it will be addressed again at item 6, but I recognise the importance of both collaborating with the Town Council and providing a new pump track for the young people of Oswestry. I've asked officers to continue exploring this and other potential options and to bring a report to the next October Cabinet meeting, recommending a preferred approach of the new administration. This will enable the appropriate formal decision-making process to take place and support the delivery of the track in a good time.
Thank you very much. We now move on to member question time. We have 5 of those. So we have a question from Councillor Craig Emery, and Julian Dean will be reading that on his behalf. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you very much. In February 2025, Shropshire Council gave permission for a temporary road closure in Pantglas due to a collapsed area of carriageway. This temporary road closure has been extended several times with no progress to works being completed on the ground. The road closure has split the community of Pantglas. Can Cabinet members update the community as to an expected timetable for the completion of works in the area? Can they further provide reassurance as to how similar schemes will be better managed from now on so that local members can track progress?
Thank you very much. And answering this one is Councillor David Basma, please.
Thank you. And thanks for reading the question, Councillor Dean. A section of the original stone culvert had collapsed, leading to a void forming under the road, and a hole appeared in the road surface. Due to the position of the hole, the road has had to be closed on an emergency basis. The work to repair the culvert involves the replacement of a section of the original stone culvert with a 900mm concrete pipe. Works should have started on the 1st of September 2025 this year, and the works will take approximately 4 weeks to complete. In response to the second section of your question, managers do their very best, but lack the appropriate financial resources and personnel does make it harder for staff to respond in a timely manner. That does not stop us from reviewing our responses and looking for improvements. So thank you very much for submitting the question.
Thank you. Supplementary. So first of all, you've given us an indication of 4 weeks. That's interesting because, as I understand from last night, the Parish Council was told that the work would be finished in approximately 3 weeks. So it'd be good to get clarity on that. Also, really just to make the point that during the closure, the diversion signs were so poor that it's been reported that ambulances were actually having to turn around and find a different route to where they were trying to get to because the information wasn't clear enough, adding in some cases 40 minutes to their journeys. That clearly isn't a satisfactory situation. Finally, with regard to your final point in terms of that question around transparency and being communities and members having some idea about timetables for works such as this, I'd like some reassurance that we are going to move towards a situation where councillors have a mechanism for really overviewing work such as this and other infrastructure work. As we've discussed in previous meetings, it's high time that councillors had a much better idea of how they could track the schemes that have already been agreed but haven't actually been implemented. Thank you.
Would you like to come back? Sorry.
Thanks very much for your response, Julian. I will investigate the 3 to 4 week issue. On ambulances, yes, signage for road traffic management sometimes leaves a lot to be desired, and I will take up the point that you've made and investigate that. Lastly, I think it's really important that councillors do get proper updates about the work that's being undertaken in their areas, and I will, I continue to emphasise this, and I will continue to work towards improving the situation.
I think that communication between the works teams and the local member is absolutely vital. It's been shocking. It is improving, but it's not good enough. I'm told that the work started a week ago, so it's got 3 weeks left to run. Right. The next question is from Councillor Chris Naylor, who is here around the partnership initiative with parish councils.
Thank you and good morning all. I and other councillors are very excited by the new administration's impressive partnership initiative, and I'd thank the Deputy Leader for his persuasive recent presentation to Condover Parish, which was very well received. Another of my parish councils, Church Preen, which has more than a few pothole problems, has seen the successful parish partnership project in Devon and is now keen to offer a volunteer team, no money changing hands, to fix signs, check drains and even do minor pothole works. I'll be very grateful for an update on the overall progress of this important initiative. Thank you.
Interestingly, of course, this sits across 2 portfolios, but Alex, for towns and parishes, will actually respond to you.
Thank you for your question. So as Councillor Naylor will recall, I, along with the Chair of Transformation and Improvement Scrutiny, David Minnery, reached out to our town and parish councils in June 2025 to get their views on resetting our relationships. Councillor Minnery and I have been humbled by the responses so far. We've had around 88 of our 153 local councils respond, the vast majority in favour of further discussions about how we work more closely together. In the meantime, we've been working with colleagues at Salk and Shrewsbury Town Council in particular, with whom we have an existing working relationship on issues including street maintenance, to produce a draft memorandum of understanding to set out a clear framework in which to move forward successfully. And whilst the MOU is not a legal document, it helps formally agree how we want to work together in mutual respect and transparency as equal partners from the very beginning. We've shared this with our colleagues in all 153 town and parishes and asked them to confirm if they would like to sign it as a way of symbolising our commitment going forward. It's intended to set a basis of collaborating that we recognise may eventually reach different outcomes for different areas, but which we hope can provide solutions for both the sparsest, most rural parish and the largest market town. Once signed, we can then work together immediately to review opportunities and ambitions and begin to implement these as quickly as we can. In addition to this work, we've also asked Councillor Minnery to lead an overview and scrutiny task and finish group to develop a policy that can be considered by Cabinet that would create effective local partnerships aimed at working in closer partnership, not just with towns and parishes, but with the voluntary sector and private sector and lots of other organisations. This work will use examples from elsewhere to help define our own approach, including in Devon, which I think was referenced in the question. So while we take advantage of immediate opportunities and are looking to proceed with pilot schemes in the next financial year, we're also looking to agree a longer term approach that ensures we work in partnership with local leaders to benefit our communities. That partnership working approach is likely to form the basis of a new strategic plan for Shropshire Council, which may even be referenced to Cabinet later today. I would also add that it was excellent to meet with Condover Parish Council in Councillor Naylor's division and hope that they might take us up on our challenge of being the first pilot for a rural cluster, whereby they and their neighbours take us up on our MOU and jointly support direct labour to improve the public realm.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, if I may. Thank you very much for the full and helpful answer. And as well for last week mailing around the MOU to members, which I actually hadn't been aware of. Maybe I missed it. I think this went out some time ago to town and parish councils. So I wanted to report that I've been in parish council meetings representing 7 different parishes in recent days, and regrettably, while several were positive, some are now rather less so as a result of seeing the MOU. So would you look at the possibility of an MOU light for our smaller parishes in due course?
The one-word answer is yes, and that will certainly be part of the task and finish group's work in looking to recommend to Scrutiny and then Cabinet. The slightly longer form answer is we're not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good with this. We know that the smallest, sparsest rural parishes are going to have a very different set of priorities and approach to larger market towns. A lot has been talked about with town and parishes over many, many years. Our priority was getting something tangible moving quickly and getting some pilot schemes moving and seeing what works, and also being willing to hold our hands up if stuff doesn't work. So we absolutely will be looking at that and at ways of working with all 153 and our parish meetings, of course, beyond just those councils.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We now move on to a question from Councillor Terry Trickett. Oh, sorry, Andy, I crossed you off by mistake. Great, many apologies. So, Andy, we have your question here, and you're with us remotely. So it's about a property in King Street, Ludlow.
Thank you, Heather. Can you just confirm you can hear me, because I've got some technical issues?
Yes, we can, very well.
Thank you very much. Numbers 4 to 5 King Street, which have been knocked into one, were formerly a Costa Coffee. The fabric of the buildings deteriorated during that period. Decay has increased since Costa Coffee closed in May 23. Cement has flaked from the front wall. A pane of glass fell out onto the pavement of King Street. This is Ludlow's greatest eyesore and an embarrassment to the town and Shropshire. Despite a year and a half of discussions between myself, council officers, the owner and contractor, nothing significant has been done to the building. It is opposite a popular venue, the owner of which says it's affecting his business. Ludlow has run out of patience on this. Shropshire Council can move it forward by issuing a notice under Section 54 of the Planning Listed Buildings Act 1990. Can the council firstly conduct an urgent building inspection of both the exterior and the interior of the building? Secondly, issue a Section 54 notice of the owner to ensure there is maximum focus on bringing this Grade 2 listed building into repair. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I have Councillor David Walker to answer your question.
Thanks, Andy. Council officers are aware that the external condition of 4 to 5 King Street, which is a Grade 2 listed building, has been gradually deteriorating over recent years and for some time prior to the Costa Coffee branch closing. This includes flaking paintwork and defects to the part of the render of the front elevation of the property, both of which have been noticeably since at least 2021. We are further aware that residents and Councillor Boddington have raised increased concerns about the deteriorating condition of the exterior of the building over the past 18 months, including via social media. The owner of the property sought pre-application advice regarding proposals to repair and furbish the building last year. They have subsequently advised officers they intend to bring forward an application for planning permission and listed building consent this autumn, with a view to letting the property to an end user towards the middle of next year. Ahead of this, the owners removed inappropriate materials that had previously been applied to the floors of the building, together with some stripping out of the previous cafe fixtures, with the agreement of the Conservation Officer last year. Officers also agreed that the owner could undertake a package of repairs to the render and the front elevation of the building ahead of submission of their planning application. The owner's surveyor continues to advise officers that they are currently in the process of appointing a scaffolding contractor to enable them to undertake the works. They have further advised that once they have appointed the contractor, they will apply to the Streetworks team for a scaffolding permit, also taking account of the need to avoid scaffolding being in place and a pavement below it obstructed during the Ludlow Food Festival weekend of the 12th to 14th of September. Officers have arranged to meet with the surveyor dealing with the property this week to inspect the interior and exterior of the building and further impress upon them and the owner the need to progress these repairs as soon as reasonably possible now. They will provide myself and Councillor Boddington with further updates once this meeting has taken place. Section 54 of the Planning, Listed Building and Conservation Area Act 1990 provides the Council, as the local planning authority, with the power to undertake works which appear to them to be urgently necessary for the preservation of a listed building. case law has clarified that these works should be restricted to emergency measures to keep the building wind and waterproof, safe from collapse and or prevent vandalism or theft, and must be to the minimum works necessary to achieve this and not include those that are just desirable. Any such works are therefore limited to measures such as temporary roof coverings to prevent pride shelter, temporary structural shoring and scaffolding, and boarding up and installation of temporary security doors and window grills. Before proceeding, the local planning authority must firstly formally warn the owners that the building that is considering taking enforcement action upon, in order to provide them with the opportunity to act themselves and therefore prevent any cost arising to the public purse. Likewise, works cannot proceed until a notice, often referred to as an urgent works notice, has been served that specifies the scope of the works to be undertaken and providing the owner with a minimum of 7 days to respond. Under section 55 of the Act, the owner can appeal to the Secretary of State via the Planning Inspectorate against subsequent attempts by the local planning authority to recover its costs for undertaking urgent works. Given these considerations, officers advised me, and I agree, that any urgent works notice would not be the appropriate enforcement tool to utilise in this case, and that any challenge against such a notice is likely to succeed in the circumstances, especially given the negotiations with the owner remain ongoing and that other planning enforcement powers would consider to be more appropriate. With regard to the safety of the public, the Council's Building Control team have recently investigated a dangerous structures case after receiving reports of debris and glass falling from the building and the deteriorating state of repair, which included dialogue with the owners. However, a building control surveyor checked the building over again the weekend of 6th to 7th of September after they were made aware of Councillor Boddington's concerns. Any further such incident should be reported directly to the building control team so that they can be advised and can investigate in relation to their powers under the Building Act 1984.
Thank you. Andy, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I mean, a bit of a comment and just supplementary, really. I mean, there is an alternative as Section 215 of the Planning Act 1990 as a way of enforcing. But just as I approach the question, that I just wonder when we're going to run out of patience with this. They're applying for a scaffolding, well, they're trying to get a scaffolding contractor. That's been going over 6 months. We were told at the beginning of the year they had a scaffolding contractor. The local MP was told 3 months ago that it was Shropshire Council holding up the scaffolding licence. There's never been an application for a licence. So, you know, at some point we have to run out of patience. This has been going on for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you. David, do you have a reply?
Thanks, Andy. No, I take the point about the urgency that you feel needs to happen, but I'm still satisfied with the approach that the officers are taking. We're more than happy to meet you and everybody else on site to resolve it as quickly as we can. But I do have to say, as the portfolio holder, I'm not exactly content that you haven't approached me about this at all before you've asked this question, and we could have sorted out some of these issues in a more direct way, perhaps. So if you want to talk about it, then please get in touch and we'll sort it out. But I'll certainly get Andy Wigley to come back to you in terms of the specific point about the other clause you can exploit.
Thank you. Okay, I hope we put that site visit in place relatively quickly and we move this one on. Super. So we now do move on to Councillor Terry Trickett's question, which Tim Collard will read.
So our question is this: will Cabinet consider ensuring that site visits for planning applications are arranged in line with the Local Government Association Good Practice Guidelines, so that all controversial and significant sites have a visit planned? In addition, will Cabinet ensure that local members are invited to these site visits and sent the details alongside planning committee members, as the current practice of not inviting them is undemocratic? In accordance with the Council's own policy, will Cabinet ensure that landowners of land adjacent to a prospective planning application are notified directly, rather than having to find out indirectly through parish or town councils or via their local member?
Thank you. So we move back to David Walker again, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Terry, for the question. By way of background, officers and members, including myself and both chairs and vice chairs of the planning committees, are working together to review the members' protocol for these committees, and this will look at all areas of the committee's operation, including agenda setting and site visits. In response to, will the Cabinet consider ensuring site visits? Part of the question, site visits by planning committee are not required in every case, and decisions are taken at the agenda setting meeting when it is decided by the planning services manager in consultation with the chair and vice chair in accordance with the constitution, where a matter should be determined by the relevant planning committee. Once the agenda is set, the agenda setting panel considers the costs and benefits of visiting the application site. In some cases, a guided and formal site visit is a necessary part of assisting the planning committee, and this is the subject of its own protocol. Officers can assist members in understanding sites through plans, maps, photographs, and other developers, and some developers will provide a fly-through and other visual impact study with photographs, but I agree that in some cases, issues such as topography related to adjacent land and the impact of development requires a site visit in order to properly understand the setting and consider later during the committee meeting proper. A committee site visit can be used to clarify physical features and to view the site and its overall setting, including from any private land necessary. The site visit is not a formal part of the planning committee meeting. Therefore, it is important that no decisions are taken or seem to be taken by any applicant at the site visit. There should be no discussion held on the merits of the proposal. Officers will attend in order to clarify any factual information. That is in accordance with the LGA guidelines. In addition, will Cabinet ensure that local members are invited? Part of the question. The Planning and Development Services Manager has confirmed that local members will be invited onto site visits, and this has been implemented with immediate effect. It acknowledged that members play a vital role in their local areas and can add to site visits with local knowledge and insight, such as when to take action to ensure that this happens going forward. Members are reminded that Planning Committee, acting in their capacity as the decision makers on planning applications, are acting in a quasi-judicial role. In a relevant section for in accordance with the Council's own policy, part of the question, the public requirements for planning applications are set through the Planning Acts. Landowners of adjacent land can attend a committee site visit. However, they may not enter private land without the express permission of the owner, as they are not part of the site visit. Members of the public can attend and listen to those parts of the site visit which are carried out on public land, but members should not discuss matters relating to the application. If adjacent landowners or other members of the public wish to address the planning committee or state their views, then they should attend the formal planning committee meeting in accordance with the protocol on speaking in public at planning committee. This is the opportunity for adjacent landowners to address the planning committee directly in the formal meeting. As site visits are carried out in order that members can view site characteristics and the general location, it is not open to members or public to discuss the application at this forum. There is no requirement or benefit in inviting neighbours to the committee site visit. Should it be considered necessary to visit adjoining land in order to help inform committee, then officers may consider writing to the neighbouring landowners to gain the permission. However, this is rarely necessary. Further, officers and members accompanied by authorised officers have powers to enter land at any reasonable time for the purpose of surveying the land in conjunction with the termination of a planning application. In practice, it is likely that the landowner will have granted specific consent. However, this power of entry does not extend to members of the public or adjacent landowners. I don't have some.
Thank you, David. That was extensive. We now move on to Councillor Rosemary Dartnell, who is here on allocation of SIL Section 106 monies.
Thank you, Heather. This question is about my own division, but it's clear that these issues apply county-wide. I've pursued road safety measures in Colham and Sutton, a residential area that's accommodated 2,000 new homes, with traffic volume increase just as anyone would expect. Following complaints, I've engaged in extensive discussion with residents, local police, the PCC and council officers. Despite successfully making the case for a number of improvements with officer agreement, change simply does not happen. Examples, and these are just examples, there are more. Wenlock Road, a new Toucan crossing, first lobbied for by my predecessor up to 2021, but now even more needed. Highways applied for SIL funding for this late in 2024. The decision was due March 2025. Yellow lines on a section of Wenlock Road and Huxley Close to control college parking. Upgrading existing zebra crossings and speed limit reduction on London and Wenlock roads. No externally funded footpath exists yet from Weir Hill to London Road, nor improvements to Belvedere Bridge, both S106 funded. Although I have regularly pushed for information, I have received no communication of consequence, not even an update that shows progression and or a timeline for completion. I've heard nothing concrete about any of these and other necessary relatively minor projects. Residents simply do not understand why, and neither do I. What is the problem? The administration of SIL and S106 monies is opaque when it should be managed openly with full transparency, including the involvement of elected members. Please explain why S106 and SIL allocation is managed so mysteriously and what is being done to change this.
So I have two members going to answer this because it actually straddles two areas. And so I will ask both David Walker and David Vasmer. So I think we go to David Vasmer first.
Yeah, shall I give a relief to Councillor Walker and answer the highways elements of this question? So thanks, Councillor Dartnell, for your question. And I'm just going to relate to the sections on highways. Firstly, on yellow lines on a section of Wenlock Road and Huxley Close. This proposal has previously been raised by local residents, which resulted in the commencement of a formal consultation around yellow lining and associated parking restrictions enforcement to resolve reported issues in the area. This consultation was originally completed in parallel with the adjacent proposals around traffic management measures in support of the local school streets initiative. In the light of the current suspension and review of the School Streets pilot programme, it is now proposed that this consultation is rerun in isolation around the yellow line restrictions in the area of Huxley Close only. This will allow officers to assess the residents' responses to this matter in a focused way and allow any recommendation to pursue an enforcement scheme to be accurately around the local implications of such. It is envisaged that this could be completed within around 6 weeks from commencement, and residents will be informed of the start of this process. We apologise for the delay on this matter. This initiative was previously being led by officers no longer with the council. On the second item is upgrading extra zebra crossings, speed limit reduction on Wenlock and on London and Wenlock roads. This matter will again require detailed consultation around the proposals, the potential benefits and impacts on traffic movement and pedestrian safety locally and in the wider area, alongside affordability for the council. As such, it is also proposed that detailed plans are now prepared for the launch of this consultation in collaboration with the local member and the portfolio holder. Do come back to me, Rosemary, if you want further information.
Thank you, that's very useful. And as many of you will know, the next part of this that David Walker will actually cover has very much been part of our manifesto because it was so opaque. David.
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of the general point you've raised about SIL, section 106 planning obligation S106 agreements are generally applied to the direct impacts from development and are secured prior to the granting of planning via a legal agreement which specifies how the funds are to be applied. In contrast, community infrastructure levy SIL funds are generally used to mitigate the cumulative impacts of a number of developments and therefore not generally applied to schemes at the planning application stage. Shropshire Council makes decisions regarding the allocation of SIL funding in accordance with the SIL regulations and national planning practice guidance in relation to the priorities identified in 3 key sets of council documents: the 18 place plans, the strategic infrastructure and investment plan, and the annual infrastructure fund statement. These documents are all published on the council's website together with a range of other explanatory information. The highest priority for use of SIL is given to critical infrastructure needs resulting from new development, in particular ensuring there is sufficient capacity in our schools, roads and health facilities. The issue of S106 and SIL funding was reviewed by a member developer contribution task and finish group in 2023-24 and its findings reported to the Economy and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 11th of July 2024. As a result of this, officers are currently preparing a developer contribution supplementary planning document which is hoped to be brought to Cabinet for agreement for consultation later in 2025. With regards to the allocation of SIL funding to specific projects, this is normally done via an expression of interest EOI process administered by an officer-led internal infrastructure group, IIG, which meets quarterly. This process has agreed a number of projects for approval, including schemes related to highways, additional education provision, additional GP provision, and new and enhanced leisure provision. However, it is recognised that there has been recent concern expressed about the transparency of this process, including the need for greater member oversight of this decision-making process. The process of allocating SIL is likely to be subject to further member scrutiny later in 2025, and officers are committed to working with members to ensure this process is fit for purpose and fully transparent. And we've basically asked about this since we started, so it's just a process. We're just trying to work it out, really.
Thank you. And it is really important that we do understand exactly all of that, but because at the moment when there's a SIL allocation, it's only when it's over 500,000 that it comes here, and actually we ought to be seeing those community benefits, and they should be there for everybody to see. So local elected members, even more importantly. So that's where we're going with it, and it will be dealt with as quickly as possible. So,
I ask a supplementary question? Apologies for a supplementary question, given so much attention to this, but I'd just like to raise the fact that in another part of the division I used to represent on Otley Road, without knowledge of local members, there were 3 of us actually at that time. There was a new Toucan crossing passed by the SIL board and not even mentioned to local members, not mentioned to local community, certainly not consulted on, and erected in a way that actually cut off dangerously a cycle route. So if these things can happen quickly, so there's, there was no consultation about that, and I'd just like to really raise that with you. I'm very happy to write to you, David, on that and explain what happened there that happened in the last 18 months. And I think it's a very different management of SIL for that instance and the ones I'm talking about, and many other members no doubt have.
So, does anyone want to respond?
Part of the whole point of SIL is to get residents to buy into future development because they see the benefits of development and the money it can release for infrastructure. So it's important that as an organisation we feed back properly when SIL's allocated, so people locally can see the direct benefit of. Otherwise, you don't ever get any buy-in to future development. So they need to close the comms loop, if you like. Feeding back to members when things are being implemented on the ground will be David's part almost. But certainly, there's a job to do for us to tidy up the comms around SIL and selling the benefit of leveraging SIL to do the infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the end of members' questions. Thank you for participating, all of you. Item 6 on the agenda are the scrutiny items, and in this case it's the skateboard facility and pump track. And can I invite the chair of the scrutiny committee to come and present that, please? This is Councillor Ed Potter.
Hello, thank you very much, Chair, and hello, Cabinet. Before you is a report following our meeting on the 10th of July of this year, where we received a petition from residents in Oswestry. We've already heard about this morning, so I won't repeat the very concise and potted history of the site. We have, after hearing from the petitioners and local residents about the need for the pump track, the damage to neighbouring areas, and the fact that there is land available, a solution in terms of funding from the town council. A discussion was had by members of our committee looking at this, and enthusiastically members have agreed to make the recommendations to you today. Obviously, adjacent to the leisure facilities, we discussed also the need to ensure that any transfer of land didn't impact on any future expansion of the leisure facilities in Oswestry as well, particularly with the town, its potential growth in population in the coming years, moving forward with the new local plan when that happens. So you'll see before you two simple recommendations. One that the relevant portfolio holder, I think there's two actually covering this, work with officers to look at transferring the land to Oswestry Town Council for the use of a pump track and skate park, and in the most appropriate means of doing that. And the second recommendation is we obviously recognise that no decision probably could be made today. You need to do your various due diligence, but we are keen, as residents are, to ensure that items like this, when they come forward through scrutiny, can move forward at pace. So we've sort of made the recommendation that perhaps this could be brought back to Cabinet with a decision in a month's time, if possible.
I once again thank the organisers of the petition for bringing this matter here and for the Scrutiny Committee's recommendations contained within this report. As I responded to the member of the public earlier in the meeting, I've asked and actively am chasing officers to continue exploring this and other potential options, and aim to bring a report to the October Cabinet meeting recommending the administration's preferred approach. This will enable the appropriate formal decision-making process to take place and support the delivery of the facility that the young people of Oswestry clearly need.
So, has anybody got anything else they would like to add to this?
If I can,
Yeah.
Chairman, it's just to emphasise what Councillor Owen says. It is our intention that the 15th of October will give more of a positive answer to it, but it needs some investigation to see if this is the best site or if is there any other alternatives that we could use. But Councillor Owen is actually driving this quite hard, I understand.
I think considering that this has gone on for some considerable time now, we do need to deal with this at pace. So I will be expecting to have that report back on the 15th of October. And yes, please. So if nobody else has got anything else to say to this, then we have the two recommendations here, 3.1 and 3.2. I will propose those.
Happy to second.
Are we all in favour, please? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So I hope that concludes that for you for the time being, and you will be watching us on the 15th of October. Thank you. And thank you very much for reporting. Yeah. Thank you, Ed. Okay, in which case we can move on to the Children's Social Care Ofsted report and next steps. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really very pleased to present this report to Cabinet today. It is a huge outcome, fantastic outcome, and I'd like to acknowledge the very hard work of staff within the service and also across the council, because to achieve this there has been some significant work from HR, legal, our IT services and others. An inspection such as this of 3 weeks, a week off site, 2 weeks on site, is very clearly set out in the report as to how that occurred. It's quite it's probably unique within the council that no other service other than adult social care gets this level of in-depth inspection and analysis of case files, which once we hand the information over, have absolutely no control over what the inspectors will look at. So this outstanding result is down to some very good professional social work practice within the service with a strong and committed leadership, and that's outlined in the report. So our vision has for some time been about ensuring that children feel loved and cared for in family settings, and mostly in their own family or in an alternative care setting. So over 75% of the children we care for that can't live with their birth family are cared for in other family homes, and this is really important. It's better outcomes and really stable support. So foster carers, connected carers, kinship carers and adopted families provide that. Where that isn't possible because children have additional needs and need specialist residential care, or their needs need to be met in a residential setting, we have 6 of our own care homes, and I would like to note in this report as well that they are either graded good or outstanding by Ofsted. So that underpins the whole service, that we have a really good, outstanding service for children and young people in Shropshire. This result has been down to the whole commitment of council and the recognition that children are part of our future and that we need to support them fully. So we have a lot of early help services, stepping stones, very good social work practice, various teams that support these young people and their families from a very early stage, and that's resulted in this outcome today. We've achieved this through holding an improvement board, which was chaired by the chief executive and which was also supported by sector-led improvement partners, Warwickshire and Wiltshire, and a dedicated support from the Department of Education. And that facility allowed us the opportunity to challenge and triangulate the data and double check and audit the work that was being completed in the sector, in the service, and that's resulted in this. So it is not just a snapshot of 3 weeks. This is what happens day in, day out. And during the 3 weeks of inspection, there are over 95 meetings, a significant number of interviews with staff, including myself and the director. 45 minutes flies by because it just is one question after another. So the inspection also reviewed individual files of children's families, their families. We had no control over which ones they were going to select. The audit dip sampling that had been taking place over the previous 18 months was clearly evident, as was the work of the independent reviewing officers in checking those files. So wherever possible, we support people, as I said, in family settings, and this report identifies that. So we now have this outstanding result. As I said, it's down to very good council social work practice and professional social work practice. We very much hope to recruit new qualified social workers into Shropshire and to use this to help retain them. It means a good outcome for the children and young people of Shropshire, and our improvement board has now been stood down, and we are going now for new children's ambitions board, which again under 7.101 in the report identifies what we will be doing going forward so that we can maintain this service and build on those good outcomes that our young people deserve. Having said that, I move the recommendations and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for? Right, I have two, so I will go actually to Rosemary first.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. I just wanted to congratulate Children's Services on clearly an outstanding result. It's a testament to very hard work and determined work at all levels of the service, underpinned strongly by the need to bring love into all areas of the system. I was pleased to be with the whole team when the result was announced and see the cohesion within staff teams and within and among the families who came. It was impressive, quite emotional. It's something to really be proud of. I just also want to mention some things that are not as positive, but just really to, be real, but not in any way to, contradict what I've just said. I just note the report comments on the reduction in our next steps of the numbers of children in care over time. Clearly, this is not something that can be done quickly, but my understanding is that high numbers of children are in care in Shropshire compared to other authorities. I also wanted to mention that while the service overall is clearly outstanding, there are those who are unhappy with the service their individual families have received. And I seek assurance that the team work for improvement with groups such as PAC, the Parent and Carers Council, for example, and others, to improve the experience of all families who are under pressure in this way.
Thank you. Ruth.
Thank you, Rosemary. That's really pleasing to hear your congratulations. And when the announcement was made, it was a really celebratory day. Regarding the number of reduction in children in care over time, we are very clear, and this report and this inspection has identified that we have the right people and right children coming into care. So the assessment is correct. Obviously, we don't want young people to experience the sort of situations that they do. That means they do need that support and care. But we are very, very clear that we have the right young people receiving that higher level of care. The early help and stepping stones teams provide a lot of wraparound support very early on for families, and this helps to avoid some of those children and young people escalating into higher care settings. So this report does validate the work that's going on. So the numbers are right. Obviously, we'd like that not to be as high.
Thanks.
And then secondly, your second point about the assurance, yes, obviously that will be taken forward. Thank you.
Andy.
Thank you, Chair. I also would like to congratulate the service on this amazing achievement. And our staff go up and beyond, to deliver this service. And I'd like to highlight the virtual school, the amazing work that's done there within the virtual school. I'll be going to their celebrations on the 20th of September, which is one of the joyous parts of our role. Sadly, I missed the celebration because I was on leave, but I'd imagine it was amazing, and amazing for the staff as well. They do go above and beyond their contracted hours as well, to deliver the best outcomes for our young people. So they quite rightly awarded this accreditation of outstanding. So well done. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else want to? Dan.
Thank you, Heather. This fantastic result shows that the dedication of staff can overcome an extremely problematic financial situation. Credit must go to the dedicated staff and to Kirsty Hurst-Knight, the former portfolio holder for children education, who worked across political parties to put children's needs first. It shows what can be achieved through determination and dedication. I welcome the next steps outlined in the report and by Ruth. I believe these are the right ones. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. And yes, actually, the fact that the improvement board and our corporate parenting board is cross-party is really important. Thank you.
Julian.
Thank you. Just to add the voice of the Green and Progressive Independent Group to congratulate staff on this this achievement to get 4 out of 5 judgments as outstanding, and then the other one as good is really quite something. Having been through different sorts of Ofsted inspections myself as a teacher formerly, I know how difficult it is for staff and how stressful those experiences must be. So yeah, I just wanted to add our voice to the congratulations.
Yes, Brendan.
And for completeness, bandwagon, what those guys said, we absolutely do appreciate that. Again, I've been involved with Ofsted as school governor, and that is a testament to all involved. So well done.
And as we will see later, that if and when we need improvement boards, it's really important that we have independent people involved, people coming in from outside, but also working cross-party, because it makes a fundamental difference to those decisions and where we go. So there's lots of learning from actually what happened within your particular service. So thank you. And thank everybody. Thank your staff too. So we have 3 recommendations, and those are 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. And I will, Ruth has already, I think, did you move those? Okay, and seconder is Alex. Thank you. All those in favour? That's unanimous. So we will also see, as you will have seen from 3.3, the whole report will be shared with full council on the 25th of this month. So we now then move on to the financial monitoring Q1. We have a number of recommendations here, and this will be presented by Roger Evans, Portfolio Holder for Finance.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will see, this report is rejigged and different to the period 1 and 2 and all those reports last year. It's been rejigged to reflect a new management structure which was introduced last March under the previous administration. It shows, as the financial year proceeded, that during the first quarter, the first 3 months of this financial year, staff made some headway at meeting the saving targets set them by the last Conservative administration when it was still in charge. The general fund balance, or money in the bank, that was available to meet any unplanned events is shown here at just £768,000. It is not acceptable, and work was continuing to try and improve this. The long-term recommendation is, of course, that this should be over £10 million in general reserves. The £41 million worth of savings that were not paid last year and has rolled forward into this year due to the again failure of the previous administration to make them, makes it just not possible. As I said last February, when both the leader and I pulled out of the budget discussions due to the continued lack of explanations of how projected savings were to be made. Just one line with no explanation was not acceptable, is not acceptable, and it was repeated many times within the document. If one looks at the report and it states that the forecast there would be if you look at today's report, it is forecast that the overspend has reduced to £33.5 million. This is better than the £41 million previously mentioned, and shows the efforts that are being made to meet the total savings target that has been set for this year of just under £60 million, as shown in Table 4 on page 9. And it is an impossible target to save that within 1 year and with the budget that has been left us. We do need to find more savings in order to increase the general fund balance. The council, everyone will agree, is at risk, is at the precipice, and its edge is coming even closer. At the scrutiny held earlier this week, I made the comments there that all the cupboards, all the different areas, all the different pockets where money, reserves had been stored are now bare. Used during past years and often within that year to add to the general fund balance. The earmarked reserves, the reserves put away to meet future commitments, if one looks, is just one example. Money from this has been moved often during the year so that it can be shown in the forecasting that the council still has a few millions in the general fund. But if one looks at the table on page 10 of this report, one can see how this is reduced year after year due to the continued failure to set a budget that is deliverable year after year. The budget, and hence the savings that the council were told could be made, proved impossible for this year. I could say more, but I will say more when we look at period 4 shortly, but I move the report and the recommendations listed in 3.2 on page 2 and 3 of this report.
Thank you. Questions for Roger? Dan.
Thanks, Heather. I think it's good that it's been noted that the previous Conservative administration comparatively saved more last year than any other council in the West Midlands. But of course, the big problem is that the central government's funding formula for local councils has consistently disadvantaged large, sparsely populated rural counties like Shropshire, where it costs more to deliver services like waste collection, social care and road maintenance across a large spread out area. And the local government settlement funding doesn't reflect the problems of this sparsity or this rurality. And of course, the removal of the Rural Services Delivery Grant has stripped Shropshire residents of some £8 million per annum. The Conservative administration did work in collaboration with other political groups on the budget, and previously much has been said about external consultants, but they did save £4 for every £1 they cost this council. And quite frankly, their contribution might have been helpful now. On leaving office, the administration did have £4 million in reserves. Of course, these have largely gone. And while the previous administration worked tirelessly to mitigate the acute financial pressures, the latest overspend is due to new unexpected increases that after we left office, such as different things in social care. As we can see from the report, the situation did deteriorate in July. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else any more comments? Do you want to come on back on that, Roger?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think I would agree, we would all agree that rural authorities have been poorly looked after for many years under the Conservative and the present one. If one looks at the present one for this year, under 4% increase does not meet the increases that we're facing. 10%, I've been told, is what our increases are. So we have the council tax rise governed up to a maximum of 5%, and we've got under 4% from government, nowhere near the 10% that is there. But the problem we have is that we were set an impossible budget, £4 million in reserves. Where were all the rest of it? The earmarked reserves and every other reserve was robbed, moved to actually maintain that. And the budget that was set had £41 million worth of savings that was impossible to find last year. And how are we to find it this year? And if one looks at period 2 on the last page, you'll see the £41 million there. And there was nearly £26 million where at the period 2, which is this year, which was at the end of May, there were still no plans published on how to save £25 million. How you can put items in a budget and not show plans on how it is to be attained, I just do not know. And that is why we walked away from the budget discussions back in February, because we just didn't know how and where the savings were going to be made. Thank you, Chairman.
I now have Rosemary.
Thank you. I could blather on for ages here about absolutely catastrophic cut over the 15 years of Conservative government to this council and every other council in the land. I could also talk about the fact that for 5-6 years, this council decided not to increase council tax even by the rate of inflation at the time, which has left us actually with a large deficit as well. So let's not, waste our time talking about those things that are beyond us now. Just as the Liberal Democrats now here are dealing with the fallout of a Conservative administration for 15-16 years here, the Labour government is trying to do the same in Westminster. And thankfully, they have a thing called fairer funding, which they're consulting with and working on to try to sort out the difficulties of deprivation in rural areas compared to that in metropolitan and urban areas.
Thank you, Rosemary. And certainly, it is a very difficult situation that we've inherited, and we are working under a budget that we did not set. It is not our budget. There are also all of these pressures which we've referred to that actually are outside our control. There are many things that come in to affect us, and being sparsely populated and a large county, it is really difficult to make ends meet. But the funding stream from central government has year on year been cut since 2008, really. That's gone on considerably. It's got worse, and then this last year, losing 8 million was really, really not what we needed just then. So there are a number of areas that we need to look at, but also we have put in our submission to the Fairer Funding Review, and we are keeping our fingers crossed, but not overly optimistic that actually the government will look at the needs that rural Shropshire has and our demography. Much of our problem, of course, comes down to the fact that we have an elderly demographic, and actually that has not helped because we have statutory obligations to deliver good care services. When that is it's dropped a bit, between 70 and 80% of our budget, and we have a lot of people who are running out of their own money, and therefore we have to pay for them, we have a significant problem. And that means the pressures have to be on all of those things that are not just nice to deliver, but actually a part of preventative work, health, that's leisure, is non-statutory, but actually we need people to be going to our leisure centres for exercise on prescription, for mental health support, for a whole range of other things, and delivering those services is not statutory. So if I could ask anything of the Labour Party and those here, in particular Rosemary, and I'm sure she will assist, in lobbying the government around these very things, because unless we have the wherewithal to do that preventative work, actually our issues across the board will not improve. So there is a huge picture. It's very complex and it's all interlinked. So we are where we are, and we will be shortly going into the next paper, which will take us further down the road. But certainly we have a significant problem delivering a whole range of services, a whole range, and it isn't just one area. It's across the board. And everybody thinks you can just cut the back room. Actually, the back room services support everything else that we do. And without much of that, and that's been cut to the bone, council doesn't work at all. So let's be grateful for our staff and what they're doing under very difficult circumstances, and move on to the next part of the agenda. So we have recommendations here. Roger, are you going to move those recommendations?
Yes, Chairman, move 3.2 and all those associated with it.
Happy to second.
Right, are we in favour of those? Thank you, that's unanimous. We now move on to the very much more in-depth paper that I'm sure the press is waiting for and everybody else in the room, which is financial monitoring of period 4. Roger, please.
Thank you, Leader. Here we have the bad news. Despite all the hard work of staff, the budget position worsened during July. The much feared, unplanned, unexpected costs that are always just over the horizon and may happen at any time did take place. Some late savings, though, were identified, and hence the late amendments that is in the report that is before us now. It continues following the previously council agreed budget, which will mean that £889,000 overspend is that this council will run out of money early in the new year. And consequently, if that does happen, if action is not taken, our Section 151 officer will formally have to issue that dreaded Section 114 notice, which will then allow the government to appoint commissioners to come and effectively take control of this council and its spending. Our spending need to be reduced during the next 7 months, and we, this administration, will ensure this does happen. The recommendations include formally declaring a financial emergency and instructs the Chief Executive in conjunction with the Council Leader to instruct officers to take emergency action to reduce expenditure and so ensure our reserves do increase. That is our aim for this year. It's to reverse that trend, which is shown very well in a bar chart in 9.3, how the reserves have gone down and down and down until they are now in the red zone. The actual overspend, as I said, is not great, but it does signal the problems we have in meeting the spending plans left to us by the previous administration, and which we have trying to achieve more than what was achieved before. This was echoed by the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge and its recommendations. The Council Leader may say more about this shortly. I do also note, though, in the report at section 8.3, which lists the number of overspends, it is worth noting that this is largely due to the increased need, and it's the demographics of our population. It would have been much more if the savings shown in other parts of this report had not been made and which only have a passing reference to. But to again emphasise what we have been left with, very little in the bank and a budget that is just not deliverable. This, as I've said before, and I want to emphasise again, must change, and that is our target for this year. The boards proposed in the recommendation include taking emergency action, and it will help deliver this. Identify savings that can, I repeat, can be made, not the pie in the sky approach that was up till now been taken by the previous Conservative administration and the council in previous years due to the recommendations they made to the councillors present. I move the recommendations in 3.2 and recognise that emergency action is needed, is taken, and without undue delay. Thank you, Chairman.
So can I have a seconder for that, and then I'll speak. Thank you, Alex. So it's now been moved and seconded. If I just add to the CPC report, which will be ready for council for us to look at, what it said was a number of really quite nice things, which were actually we were still managing to deliver some very good services. Some very good services, and we need to be able to maintain that. But it also told us was that we were within a hair's breadth of a 114. So that's somebody who came in July. It's a group of people who looked at it all and reported back to us at the end of that week on the, I think it was the 17th of July. So that was a snapshot then. We are now in September. And actually, We now have to act because they were telling us then that that was the case for us. The report here, as Roger said, has now means that we have to do something formal. What we don't need is to serve a 114 notice and have the government send commissioners in and us have no control. You may have seen a commissioner in Birmingham sitting on the television saying, "Oh no, we recommend they do it." It is actually an order from them. You have to do it, and the cabinet then has to undertake everything that commissioner says. So what we're doing here, which was a recommendation from the LGA, is to try and control our day-to-day spending, because we're spending more day-to-day than we have coming in, by having an improvement board in place, which is what we've had in children's services when we needed it. We know that it can work. We've got some good practice to fall back on. You have somebody independent, often several somebodies who are independent, but also cross-party involved on that. And that, I think, is the only way we can progress, so that we don't lose all those things that actually, all those services that people want, require, but we don't have to have in the eyes of the law. There is a real confusion with the public because they see us spending capital money and think we've got lots of money. We have got capital. We've got capital when we spend, when we sell property. We've got capital that comes in from developers in SIL, which is why we have to be much better at spending that SIL. We have, that cannot, in most cases, be used to prop up the day-to-day budget. The day-to-day budget has to be funded by the grant coming in from government, as small as it is, and the council tax and so on. So we're going to have to be a much better council at saying, actually, we can't do this way. We have to enable people to do things in another way. So we can't just say, sorry, can't do that and walk away. We are going to have to say, in some instances, we can't do this, but actually we'll help you to find a way so that we can do this in another way, which is why we're doing all the work with towns, parishes, voluntary groups and so on. If we don't do that, we will lose a tranche of things. And there are people in this room who know where we are helping and what we can do. And in many cases, we can actually, if we look at our capital budget and SIL, help to make things much more viable by using those things to reduce what we spend, but actually make buildings, infrastructure and so on much, much more effective. So it's a grim day in many respects, but it's not that there aren't some silver linings, because there are, because we need to be able to do things in a different way, look at things differently and work properly in partnership with people. And the council's not been good at doing that. So I've had my bit to say. And I did not become leader to shut things down. I really didn't. I've been very proactive in my communities trying to make sure things happen when we haven't got money. So we will move this on so we become sustainable, and then we can begin to do all those things again when things improve, which they may well do in the future. So, Julian.
Thank you very much. So we do need to just sort of recap the history, don't we? So a history of underfunding by successive governments, yeah, which by the looks of things is continuing. Whatever people say about the fair funding review, in reality, we continue to see underfunding, and nobody is really expecting that to change. A history of setting of some council tax freezes by the Conservatives, which were frankly irresponsible and mean that we're probably about 12 million adrift to where we should be in comparison to other large unitaries which have similar responsibilities to us. A history of probably not turning quickly enough towards preventative services and towards the sort of services that actually deliver for people as well as actually save money. So that's where we that's where we are. I think you're quite, I support, and in fact, I remember that Duncan, as chair of audit, had said this already, the call for to declare a financial emergency, that seems pretty clear. My question, before a couple of other points, is this one. So we are in the lap of the gods in reality when it comes to a section 114. As we said on Monday at the scrutiny committee, a family going into crisis, a severe weather event could tip us over that line. My question is, and you've explained a little bit about what commissioners means, but as I understand it, there are different versions of what you can do after a 114. And we have to be honest with the people of Shropshire and with ourselves that what we are in part doing here is trying to set up a convincing story of the medium-term future, short to medium-term future, such that should we declare a 114, we retain as much power as possible. We have, in other words, that we can convince civil servants that there is a local plan which is going to work. That seems to me to be what we are in the game of trying to achieve. And my group will absolutely do all it can to help achieve that. I think that what we're not yet hearing, and I absolutely take the point from Councillor Evans that the previous budgets were unrealistic, but we're not yet hearing is any list of actual items that are required in order to get to that point, to get to a point where we are convincing civil servants, we're convincing the people of Shropshire that there is actually a plan. And I think we do have to start talking about those. So we do have to start talking about that drift in council tax. What do we do about it? It's not pleasant, but we do probably have to address it. We do also, it's worth also addressing the fact that, historically, the precepts, it's great that we're looking towards working closer with the parishes and town councils, but we have to recognise that the precept is extremely unequal across the county, and perhaps an equalisation, if it was done with the involvement of communities, and communities could see a direct benefit in terms of the delivery of services which are currently not being delivered very well, then perhaps an equalisation could help. That's not going to solve this year's problems, clearly. There may be other things we need to talk about. We may need to talk about moving to a 3-weekly bin collection, but it would be really good to hear some of these actual proposals that we need to talk about. I do just need to touch on the politics of this. I think that Councillor Dartnell's press release, is welcome, trying to make some suggestions, but Labour does have a special responsibility. We've just seen a reshuffle. We've got new ministers. Labour has a special responsibility to go back to government and say the settlement is not good enough for the local government as a party, as a whole. And my fear is that Labour's capture of the Local Government Association means they're not making that point clearly enough. And we need to be making that point to our local MPs and to Parliament that actually, Shropshire in particular, but all councils need to be better funded. I was holding back to speak to see if the main opposition group actually had anything to contribute to this discussion. So far, all we've heard is a suggestion that social care services should be run down and made poorer, and that people who are disabled shouldn't have access to ensuite toilets. That was the main thought we got on Monday. And since then, the only thing I've seen is an objection to a mural to deal with the disgusting state of the railways. So I'd be interested if they have anything more concrete to propose other than that. But I would also ask the administration to start actually listing some of those steps that you quite rightly are saying you're going to have to take, because I don't think we're yet hearing them. Thank you.
Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your comments and also the commitment to work together, because I think it's all groups need to work together to deliver the services that our residents want in a manner that is capable of delivering what they want and we want. It is more than just one group against another group, not trying to make the politics. Lap of the gods, yeah, but at present, all the cabinet members are talking to their finance partners, the finance people within their portfolios, looking at their budgets, seeing what can be done and how we can actually start saving money. The boards, when they are in place, will oversee it all, and they will now start to look at all expenditure every 3 times a week. It's mentioned in the report, 2 times a week, to try and ensure that we do return to a more healthy state. My aim, and I said to the staff when I went round this building when we were first put in place in this cabinet was, I want to put bread on the table. That reversal in trend that has happened over previous years has got to come back up. We need to be 5 million or more, if possible, at the end of this year, so that if there is any events that come forward late on in this financial year, we have that money there. We don't have to go cap in hand to government again. Fair funding, the council have replied to the government in their report and made specific cases that the rural authorities like us and like many others do need that extra funding and recognise the extra costs that are incurred in supplying the services to a sparsely populated area like we have. The CCN have also taken that up, and there's been reports of their chairman have been carried on Radio Shropshire, and there is a meeting this morning and there is a full meeting this afternoon when they will be again making the position that local authorities like Shropshire and other rural areas in England have got their backs against the wall. The government do need to recognise that there is extra assistance that is needed. Otherwise, there will be, Shropshire, I hope isn't one of them, but there will be some more local authorities that will start declaring a 114 because they can't manage in their debts. They're not delivering them like we are with the assistance of the LGA there with these boards. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Brendan.
We'd like to come back to respond to Councillor Dean's comments about our party's position. First of all, our general position is that we are supportive of the administration because we absolutely share your sentiments in terms of the essential nature of this work to get us back out of the situation. So we're here to support you in any possible way. We will be making suggestions, of course, as to how to do that in a ethos of teamwork and support. In terms of the mural, it's a minor issue, it's a minor amount of money. However, it is one of the sort of things we should be looking at to see, is it a good idea, but can we defer it? You know, that sort of thing. So that's a discussion item. It's not that big a deal. When it comes to health and social care and adult and child social care, we are absolutely not suggesting that any reduction in frontline services be made in order to get us out of the situation. That is not our position. Thank you.
Could I just point out, it's not our money being spent on the mural.
I know, yeah. To be honest, I didn't want to bring that up, but yeah, it's the sort of thing that people are looking at. It's what the public are looking at as well. And I want to see us doing that, but I do understand that as well. Thanks for pointing that out.
I think that we're in such a serious situation now. We can't have the public misunderstanding. Actually, we will be bringing in as much grant funding from anywhere we can to make sure we can make ends meet and keep things running. And that's part of the shift that the council's got to have. But it has to be clear that when we're doing some of this stuff, and you will see a later paper today that Ruth and I will withdraw from, grant funding of that nature coming in can significantly help the council, but it isn't our money to spend, and it's and so on. So I think everybody will have to be clear in the future when it's capital that we're spending and when it's grant funding that we've got in. And we need to congratulate officers who've actually got that grant funding in, because it does actually make places feel better without it costing us any money. So thank you, Brendan, very much for your support. Do I have Dan and then Rosemary?
Just to say that the financial pressure is intense, and the work that I've been doing with Councillor Owen and the administration to keep Much One Lot Leisure Centre open, those efforts are so appreciated by the community. So thank you for everyone involved in that. And the recent kind of budget group forum that's been set up has been extremely productive. And I agree with Councillor Dean's words that we do need more solutions coming forward, but it's good to see some being outlined by Councillor Evans. Fortunately, we will need some more. Thank you.
Rosemary.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a grim day, of course it is, but it's another grim day on top of many others. Since the LGA financial peer review in 2022, the truth is we have been in an emergency financial position since then, or even before then. Section 114 obviously is to be avoided at all costs. It's not in the interest of anyone at all, not anyone at all. And it's already clear. I hope that involves full commitment from the Labour group in helping to do whatever we can to save this position for our residents. We fully support the emergency action. It's beyond time for us to act decisively. One thing I have to say is that while we today show a projected general fund balance of £889,000 negative, that is a fluctuating position we saw through the whole of last year through monitoring that that position can change dramatically. And we've got winter ahead and so on and so forth. So we need to act dramatically. My question is really, when is the independently chaired improvement board likely to start work? It's absolutely critical. I think to us moving forward in a detailed way. I realise the internal boards are functioning now, but I think that independent overview with cross-party involvement will be critical to how we step forward.
Come back to you. I wanted all of this and the action plan to come to Cabinet today so that we could see it all. And I put quite a lot of pressure on people for that to happen. Unfortunately, we're not in that position, but certainly by the next Cabinet, it will be available. It has to be available. We are recruiting people at the present time to sit on that improvement board. And there will be a complete and detailed action plan to sit underneath the corporate peer challenge so that you can see how we've answered all of those parts of it. It's just taken a little longer than we would have wanted. But as I say, I really wanted to have everything, the case and the solution and where we were going here today. I just couldn't make that happen. So, Roger.
Can I echo that? And I know the pressure that the leader has been making within the LGA and other officers in trying to get a public version of the CPC report to today's meeting. And promises have been made, but the LGA needs to go through certain steps itself, but we were all hoping that it would have been tabled here today and made public for everybody to see, because it is important that we do move ahead and we do not waste time and just fiddle-faddling around. We need to start doing it now. I welcome all the other group comments towards the budget because we have continued, and I hope it's more in depth, the budget forums that were instituted late in the financial year last year. We've started doing it earlier this year because we are wanting to share everything that we know and hear suggestions. Because it's a suggestion that isn't made by a member of my group does not mean that it won't be implemented. We want to work together because that's the only way that we will succeed in getting Shropshire Council to the position we need it to be in. So, yeah, thank you.
Have I got anyone? Oh. James, just to come back to Rosemary, that 800,000 we happen to have got a projection of. We know that one social care case can cost us £1 million. And often those are out of our control. They're given to us. So that's how difficult it is. So, James.
I didn't get into politics, council or cabinet simply to raise my hand as instructed by central government, who I and many of my residents don't trust nationally, never mind on the day-to-day running of our services. I didn't get into it to cut services just because previous governments haven't had the forethought to make them statutory, despite provision of leisure centres, libraries, museums, need I go on, clearly having hugely positive cultural, social and economic benefit for all residents. Shropshire Council does not legally have to provide almost any of these anywhere in the county, and this financial situation makes the importance of working together with our partners, communities and town and parish councils to ensure that these services still exist even more important, even if not showing up on Shropshire Council's budget lines. I would like to urge any and all partners, staff, members, etc. to come forward and work in partnership with us, with options that will protect the things that matter to us all through this emergency and beyond.
Thank you. I have a fellow councillor who would like to speak, Duncan.
It is a uniquely difficult challenge the council's facing, and I think it's very incumbent on us to use the all the members to focus and make sure all the activity of the council is focused on the financial crisis we have. And that includes, of course, the internal audit team and the audit committee. So, I mean, I've tried to put out some feelers in the last couple of weeks to just say, it seems to me that we've got two highly performing services and adult services and children's services who have done outstanding work, but those inspections don't include value for money, and maybe we need to look at those sorts of issues across the council. So the offer is there, and it's up to Cabinet to decide how it uses these resources and facilities, but I've also tried to link up with the OV and Scrutiny chair to ensure that we work in harmony, because we can't afford over the next 6 months to have people not knowing what's going on, or a lack of clarity about how we're tackling it. So that's the offer to you, really. It's there for a resource for the council to use.
Thank you, Duncan. I think Ruth will come back on that, and then I'll go to Julian.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, let's be absolutely clear that the link to becoming an outstanding service is not directly related to the overspend in social care. The two are completely separate issues. So, for example, if we look at the percentage of older people over 65 in Shropshire, it's around 26%. Those people get older. We should celebrate them ageing well, but eventually they do need, or a lot will need, some support. Compared to England and Wales, the average is 18%. So there's a big difference, and that's really the sort of evidence of why we need a better, fairer funding allocation to meet that, the rurality and also the demographics. The other thing I'd like to say is that with children's social care, we benchmark in the lower quartile about what we spend on residential placements and what we spend per child. There has been a lot of benchmarking on that over the years, and that's remained consistent. The social care, both adults and children's, has delivered £49 million worth of savings over the last 2 years. That is just removed from the budget. So the work that's going on around prevention and early help is now well embedded in children's services. It's there in adult services, and we've been having conversations about how we embed that further and work more closely with those local communities. But it is a challenge. We cannot get away from the demographics. We cannot get away from the statutory nature of both services and the fact that for adult social care, we have to be carer compliant. There's a very firm legal framework around how assessments are completed and how support, how needs are met rather, and how we support those older people, and also with people, younger adults with disabilities. So there are a number of emerging cost pressures which we know about and are working on around capital reduction, so people who fund their own care start to run out of money, significantly increased complexity, transfers from health-funded care to the local authority, and also the sort of increased complexity of supporting people to live independently. So we're not unsighted on all those issues. We both will say it doesn't look great just social care having big red lines across the report, but we are fully committed to addressing those.
Thank you. Julia.
Thank you. I just wanted to pursue the question about the range of outcomes that could happen after a 114. I think, as I understand it, in many places recently where they've happened, commissioners haven't gone in, there's been other arrangements. I think it'd be really helpful for people to have a little bit of an understanding of that, whether it's from a portfolio holder or from one of the senior officers, I don't mind, but it'd be helpful.
I think what we're doing now, which is a very strong form of board around it, is not one of the weak ones, is the step before that. Commissioners, it's not the commissioners that come in different forms. They come in and they do what they do. It's those steps you get to before you go there, and we're doing that. The improvement board, with it, we could have people from MHCLG sitting on it to make it even stronger. I think we might prefer not to do that. I don't know. We need to think about all of that, but we are recruiting, the LGA is supporting us, and so on. Once commissioners come in, they are very directive, and there's not much, as far as I can tell, different then. They just get on with it. Roger.
Yeah. And I'll bring the finance director in if he wishes in a minute, but The government have recently changed a little bit the way 114s work. Before, if a 114 was issued, commissioners come in. As I understand it, and I'm open for correction, if a council can show that it is taking steps itself to alter the position, improve the position, the government will take a hands-off approach to allow that council to actually do it. And that's partly what this improvement board is for. But I don't know if James wants to come in on Chairman.
Thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, I think all I'd say is there are all sorts of different opinions about where a Section 114 would go. I think it's what I'm hearing in the room today is there is a consolidated opinion on we have to do everything that we can to avoid that in every way that we can, because that uncertainty that brings is a separate question mark. We are right now in a position whereby, over the last few months we've been sort of dotting along at that level. Are we going to go over? Are we going to stay under? We're talking about concerted effort here, which can bring that back and ensure that we have control. I don't want to be issuing Section 114. I don't see that as a positive outcome for this authority. What I'm seeing and hearing today is a positive response to where we are in this current situation. And I think all members and all officers united behind this position will help us to get to a place where we don't need to go over that line. As the chair said, by bringing in an independent board, this is what the corporate career challenge said. This is something that is a kind of a step which enables you to have independent view, independent advice, but still within the control of the authority. We are having regular conversations with MHCLG so that they are fully aware of the situation. Again, as Councillor Evans said, the approach of the government is if you feel like you're moving into a situation that's difficult, have those conversations with us, because we'd rather help and try and find ways to intervene without having to go down that formal route. And the Chief Executive and I have been having conversations with MHCLG for over 12 months now to ensure that they are fully understanding of our situation. I know that helps. Alex.
I just wanted to come in on impact of Section 114 as well, but also on the part of this report which details the fact that we're going to be moving forward a lot quicker with preparing a corporate plan, a new Shropshire plan, based on new strategic priorities. And I think what a lot of this feeds into is there's this short-term urgent need to save a large amount of money to avoid it this year. But in the longer term, or even in the mid-term, I think Shropshire Council is going to have to fairly promptly readdress actually what it's for. Actually what level of service should we suggest to residents we can expect to provide. In some ways it's like a faded empire. We've got outposts here and there, but those of us in Shrewsbury, just because it's the place I know the numbers best, will know when it comes to public realm, Shropshire Council employs in the single figures, towns, parishes and partners employ well into the double figures of staff alone. Shropshire acts often as if it's the primary delivery partner, and it's got that instinct, but actually it just isn't in lots of ways across the board. And hard infrastructure like culture and leisure is a big example of that. But also, I think a lot of that, public realm work, really, that is going to have to be led by partners, and we're going to have to move to being a more enabling body and a facilitating body, and partnership work is going to have to be at the centre of that new corporate plan. The reason I want to raise it now, though, is because I think something we're very keen to avoid is that were the worst to happen, we speak about lap of the gods, there is a sequence of events by which some of this could be taken out of our control quite quickly. We don't want Shropshire to be in the way of those partners. There's a lot of them in communities, particularly towns and parishes, but also lots of voluntary groups in the private sector and so on, where actually Shropshire's current policies are quite frankly insufficient and perhaps overly litigious in terms of letting partners do work and improve things for the public realm and improve things in the way we deliver our services. So some of what we're trying to do in the really short term before we get into the next financial year is just kind of get out the way, because actually if the worst were to happen, that at least means that there are other organisations which would be empowered to pick up some of the pieces and make sure that residents don't bear the brunt of that. I think if we were having this conversation last year, those sort of protections and enabling works just wouldn't have been done, and that could have been incredibly bad news. I think what as I say, what we're really keen to push both in the long-term strategy, but also in the really short term, is just making sure that there is a plan B, if you like, and that there are other partners available who might be able to take on some of the things at quite short notice, just to make sure that we don't have residents bear the brunt of that.
And that's where we all need to have ideas and actually work together, because all 74 of us have stood on doorsteps and listened to all of this. And actually, it doesn't matter which party we're in, we have the same needs and requirements from our residents across the board. It's just that we have dealt with them separately. We now really need to deal with them jointly. So, okay, has anyone got anything else they want to add to any of this? In which case, we have a proposer and seconder. All those in favour, please, with a heavy heart. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your contributions. I'm really grateful. Thank you. Right, the next item on the agenda is the performance monitoring report. This report, I want to actually change the way it happens in the future, because I need to be able to see how it changes and what we're doing about each item on those, so that actually it's a bit of a tool rather than just a statutory report that we have to do. If we're doing a report, then it would be really useful if we can see how things move, and not just that they are exceptional, that an exceptional report from last month, actually we might see what's changed the following month and so on. So if we look at that, this is my paper. There is a dashboard that you can link through to look at actually those exceptional areas and so on. Do I have any questions or anything anyone wants to raise on any of that? Rosemary.
Yeah, I wanted to raise about HEC 18, catchy, isn't it? Reduction of households in B&B accommodation. It's frustrating that despite the excellent work reducing the number of families and individuals living in B&B by council officers, and the council itself creating accommodation its own property to help those who are homeless, our B&B numbers have increased, and this is largely because social housing landlords have delays in repairs and maintenance in void properties. So between lettings, there seems to be extensive delays. This includes our own arm's length company, Star Housing. It can't be allowed to continue. Can we please be given answers as to why this is happening and how it can be rectified urgently?
I agree with you completely, and as you know, housing is one of those things that I'm really interested in getting a very, very transparent way forward with, and that we improve. I'm sure our portfolio holder will have more to say about this, but actually it's about working often better with our RSLs as well as with Star Housing.
Speaking on the voids for Star specifically, I know that a lot of them were due to a contractor change. So I think the previous contractor went bust, or along those lines. I would have to check the thing, but they had to move them across, which just delayed a load of properties sort of building up while they worked back for the works. But there is now a new contractor in place, so hopefully those will start to be cleared in the sort of near term future. Again, as Heather just said, it's also a key issue for me that the number of voids that we do have, and I've been pushing officers and the Star Housing to sort of clear these as soon as possible, because it isn't good enough that it's costing us money to house them in other places, and also displaces people who do need housing in other parts of the county because they're having to be used instead of the voids. They're having to be used to house temporary accommodation rather than allow for permanent accommodation in the future. So it's on my plate.
Rose.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, James, for that. That's interesting, because my understanding was that Star had internal staff that did this kind of work at voids, and that they have moved to an external contractor. Am I wrong in that understanding?
I would have to check that. Like when I queried the set, basically exactly what you've come to today, I was just told it was a movement of contractors. So that's all the information I currently have. But I can query that and come back to you with an answer.
I think this also brings us back to the question that we had at the beginning around delivery of affordable housing, which we now have to push on with the local plan and looking at exception sites and so on, and levering money in, because unless we start building more of it, we know that the private sector rents are now unaffordable for so many different people. So there's work around Home Point about how we allocate housing, but actually how many affordable houses, and we mean affordable all its tenures, are actually delivered, and that needs to be a priority for us, because it also picks up a lot of the revenue savings that we need to achieve around bed and breakfast and so on. So there's a whole range of things. Housing is not a simple, straightforward thing about building a house. Actually, it's terribly complex and so many things interlink. So it is work that we're looking at, and it is a key part of this performance data. Anything else? David?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make comments about section 5.4 of the report regarding the percentage of household waste sent for recycling and composting. The target is 52.6, and we've only achieved 43.7%. There's a reason for this. The report rightly refers to the impact of charging for the collection of garden waste as being the significant factor for missing the target. Garden waste has always accounted for the greater share of Shropshire Council's combined recycling and composting performance. Charging for the collection of garden waste has caused the quantity to disappear from the council's waste performance calculations. This is positive the council's aim of reducing the quantity of waste it collects, as preventing waste is the best environmental and economic option. It's not possible, however, to reduce the quantity of garden waste collected without simultaneously negatively impacting upon the council composting performance. Whilst the majority of reduced garden waste is being composted, a proportion has illegitimately found its way into the residual or general waste collection. This has the impact of further diminishing the council's recycling and composting performance. And basically what's happening is that we have a reduction in the amount of waste being composted, and some has been used by people and dealt with people themselves, but others are putting it into their waste bin. So that further affects our target. But we are making, and we will make every effort to improve and get nearer to our target in the future. Thank you, Chair.
And I might say that not collecting food waste, which is heavy, will also have impacted those recycling rates and so on. So, and that, of course, we need to address in 2026 in some way or another. So, anything else we need to raise on that before we move on? Okay. In which case, can we note and confirm, and then note again all of those things I propose?
In a second.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's great. Does anybody want a short break? Literally 5 minutes.
Yes.
So that you can get a drink, go to the loo, come back. So I expect you to be back here by just after 1:30. Oh, actually, probably 10 minutes, because the ladies only has. Okay. Right. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes. Right, thank you. Welcome back. I don't think we need James for the next item on the agenda, which is the draft Shrewsbury Town Design Code, the public consultation. David Walker.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval to undertake a public consultation on the draft Shrewsbury Town Centre Design Code, which form Appendix 1 of the report. This draft design code recognises the unique character of Shrewsbury Town Centre, influenced by its topography, relationship to the river, dense medieval street pattern, and numerous landmarks and open spaces. It therefore sets out design coding to support the high quality design of new development in the town centre. This coding is structured around 8 themes of movement, nature, built form, identity, public space, uses, homes and resources. The intention is that this coding will support application of design policies in the adopted development plan. If approved, this consultation would utilise an approach to engagement similar to that of supplementary plan documents as outlined in the Council's Statement of Community Involvement and and last for a minimum of 6 weeks commencing in October. It's entirely funded by grant funding, and it's going to be quite an important strategic document in the layer of documents we need, and it's going to be part of a raft of SPDs and other things coming out over the next few months to help bolster the planning policy framework that we've got at the moment in SAMDEV. Subject to the outcome of the consultation, the final draft design code will be brought back to Cabinet to seek approval to adopt it as material consideration in the termination of planning applications.
Thank you. I presume you're proposing that?
Yes, I'll propose that.
And I'll have a seconder. Thank you, Alex. So, questions? Rob?
The only thing I'd add is I think this is a really good example of Shropshire Council working partnership under the umbrella of the Big Town Plan partnership with Shrewsbury BID and Shrewsbury Town Council. It demonstrates what can be done when we work together with others. I think it's a very important step. It comes out of, I think, I'm going to forget exactly how many years, 10 to 15 years of public consultation. And one of the things that came out of the Big Town Plan consultation was having a Shrewsbury test about keeping design in keeping with what we have already. And I think it's an important development, and I think the fact it's grant funded is excellent.
Thank you, Rob. Julian?
Thank you very much. So design codes and supplementary planning documents sort of float my boat, and they probably float yours, but they're not going to float very many other people's boats in those words. So if we're going to have an effective consultation, especially given that this does dovetail into the Shrewsbury Move strategy and other aspects of the Big Town Plan, which people are engaging with, and there's been fantastic history of engagement through the Big Town Plan over time. I think we need to sort of up our game a little bit and not just, as was sort of suggested, do a normal run-of-the-mill consultation on an SPD. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think that, you know, we do need to be reaching out to communities. It's great that this isn't just the town centre, it goes into the Northern Corridor. I think we need to be a bit imaginative, and whilst I recognise the resource implications, there probably will be support from the BID and the Town Council, looking at the leader of the Town Council over there, to engage communities a little bit more, in a bit more of a lively way around this, because it is all part of the big picture, especially around the Shrewsbury moves, which people are beginning to notice and think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else? I think the most important thing if you go out to consultation as well is that you don't call it the Town Centre Design Code. Actually, it goes out as something a little more sexy. It's your town, that sort of stuff. You know, have your say. That. Yeah. Right. In which case, are we all in favour of that? Thank you. Unanimous. Wonderful. Thank you. So we now move on to the Treasury Management Update. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this is the end of Q1, which is the first 3 months of this financial year, April, May, June, and it's there with all the appendices there. It is largely a technical report. It's input from members is very, very little, because it's how we manage the money that to deliver the projects that the council sets in the capital budget to deliver it, and that is the Treasury management there who seem to I was going to use seem to do who actually do a good job every year, and they are invariably improve the percentage interest they get on the money that the council owns or has use of above the target rate. But I will bring in James Walton to answer any technical questions, just in case there are any, Chairman.
Thank you. So, any questions? Great. Do I have a seconder, Alex? Thank you. In which case, all those in favour, please. Okay, unanimous. Wonderful. So we have proposed consultations on residential design supplementary planning documents. David Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's another one, a variation of theme in a design code. It's similar, but it's a more overarching policy document that applies almost anywhere rather than something really specific like the Shrewsbury Town Centre document. You've got there's a whole raft of these coming over the next few months, and they're all going to strengthen the policy framework that we've got in place at the moment until we get to the position where a new local plans have been made. Too many things open on my. The report seeks approval to consult on 2 draft design supplementary planning documents, which form appendices 1 and 2 to the report. The first of these draft documents provide design guidance for new dwellings. It addresses layout, character and appearance, integration, inclusivity and sustainability function. The second of these draft documents identifies key design considerations for extensions and alterations to existing dwellings, addressing the siting, form and scale of extensions, material finishes, fenestration, impacts on neighbouring amenity and character of neighbouring properties. If approved, these consultations would comply with our statement of community involvement and last for a minimum of 6 weeks, commencing in October. Subject to the outcome of these consultations, the final draft supplementary planning documents will be brought back to Cabinet to seek approval to adopt them, again as material considerations in the determination of planning applications. Because I think it's important we do as much as we can to enable members to make the stronger decision they possibly can at committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Right. They went Brendan first and then Rosemary.
Thank you. Just a quick one for Councillor Walker. In amongst those specifications requirements, will you be addressing the appropriateness of density of development to its context, to its location? So, for example, if you have something that would look perfectly fine in an urban context being dumped into or adjacent to a village, is that one of the considerations you have in amongst that?
Density is a material consideration across the board anyway, and because planning is generally about the use, but it's also about the setting and how things interact with other things. So I don't necessarily think whether it's in or out would make any difference, because it's always going to be a material consideration. But certainly underlining that in the SPD and because it's a consultation document, there's plenty of opportunity to improve it through the consultation process by the time it comes back for adoption.
Yeah, it's more personally, but also from a more official standpoint, from what I've seen of proposals over the last few years, some of them come forward and you just do wonder what they were thinking in terms of trying to put that there. I just think to set the scene for future developers putting proposals in, if we could put some more emphasis on it, that would seem to make Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's the whole intent of all of these, is to actually improve the quality of design that comes forward in applications. And if they've done a good job, then it should be easier for committee to actually approve a good quality design, and give them the tools they need to actually comment in a constructive way to help developers come forward with a better quality design.
Thank you. Rosemary.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the urban extensions on Shrewsbury have shown us a lot. In my own area, 2,000 new homes built or being built within a 10-year period. Concerns include large developments that are often phased, that by design do not always allow space for community to develop in ways that perhaps in older housing and older estates that they have been provided for. They don't necessarily mesh with the local area in terms of movement other than by car. So we must avoid creating car-dependent dormitory islands on the edges of our towns and villages. And it's clear that these FPDs go a long way to ensuring that these things are rectified and that quality development progresses in Shropshire. I think the following are missing. In terms of Shropshire towns, there seems to be no mention of the local walking and cycling infrastructure plans developed over recent years and adopted by Shropshire Council. Perhaps I'm wrong. I can see that designing out car dependency is included, but there's no express mention of those plans, which have been hard won. And in terms of Shrewsbury, that is other than the town centre, unless I've missed it, the movement strategy and open space strategy is not referred to directly here. That this master plan was adopted last year by council as a material consideration in planning decisions. Surely it should be included expressly in the SPD to guide larger developments. And then also something that I think is really important, again, in large and phased developments, is community space. So that could be a community centre, it could be even just a covered area or something like that to add to play areas that are accommodated in this. And I think that would be a really good addition.
David?
No, I'd take on all the points that Rosemary's raised. They're all important. If Dan's on the team's meeting, so if Dan actually wants to answer any of those specifically, but it's just a matter of making sure it's as robust as possible so you can actually deliver the things you want to do. So if we can get to a position where the whole framework's tied together well and reinforces itself through SPDs and the local plan when it's made. But at the moment, we've got to leverage the policies that are in SAMDEV as it exists at the moment to give that as much strength as possible. But I'm happy for Dan if he wants to jump in and pick up any specific thing.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Walker. Just a couple of points. The importance of active travel is integrated into the draft documents with a particular focus on integrating schemes into the surrounding networks. But I think the point about referencing the specific strategies for various settlements is a good one and something we can integrate as this is a consultation draft. With regards to the quality of open space, that is very much a priority. We have policies in the local plan that dictate requirements in terms of quantity of open space, and what these documents seek to do is try and ensure that the quality is as equally an important consideration. But if you do have specific thoughts, they would obviously be welcome as part of the consultation that's been proposed.
James.
Thank you. It's sort of a general question for the portfolio on SPDs, but we have a specific sort of ongoing issue in Oswestry where there's a lot of planning coming in for conversion of properties into HMOs or houses of multiple occupation, and quite often they either get rejected on various grounds, but it would just be good if there's any idea of a SPD coming on, just to clarify what sort of we would be looking for as far as to be sort of suitable accommodation rather than just what fits within the sort of space in these properties.
Yeah, it's I've talked to officers about
SPDs for HMOs, and they're quite confident that it's not needed at the moment. There's enough in the framework to do the things it needs to do. But I'll continue to talk to officers about all of that and make sure that we do the best we can do to square off any gaps in the policy.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything to raise? I must say that in rural areas, the density on a site is really important, because quite often you have a large piece of land that somebody wants to put 2 houses on, and actually you could have more, and it could trigger some affordable housing and so on. So actually we do need to look at density, and it does need to be in keeping with the rest of the area. So interesting. Thank you very much. Are we all happy with the recommendations around this? Yes. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And I have already declared an interest in item 14. And so has Ruth. So Alex will take over and do the next item on the agenda.
Splendid. So item 14 is Bishop's Castle Arts and Leisure Centre approval for decarbonisation and pool renovation project, including the allocation of SIL funds. The lead members are James Owen and Dave Walker. James is leading on it.
Thank you. And as alluded to by Ruth earlier, I wish to highlight the great example that this project is of a local community's involvement to raise funds to improve and provide much needed facilities for a very wide geographic area. Since being set up in 2016, the local charity has campaigned and fundraised tirelessly to raise money, an impressive £250,000 to invest in new equipment, to provide courses for local people in sports leadership and becoming lifeguards. It then went on to fundraise an additional £250,000 to mark the 50th anniversary of this facility, which Olympian Oliver Morgan used to learn to swim, which is being used as part of this project to replace the pool lining and hopefully save this facility for the next 50 years and future Olympians. These fantastic activities are seen as a key reason that the project received an external grant of almost £2.5 million from government, and is very much in keeping with this new administration's key aim to protect and improve local services by working closely alongside community partners. It also makes use of available SIL funding that comes from new development in the area and across the county to improve a community facility for all. It's also worth noting, given the other reports in this meeting, that this is a capital project, and therefore the money does not come from council tax, nor is it something that can just be cancelled to save money in this financial year to keep the council afloat. In fact, the decarbonisation expanded works are expected to actually reduce running costs via energy efficiency and reduce maintenance costs in the short to medium term, proving its benefit to the whole council in this time of crisis. This report comes to Cabinet today as we need to sign off the use of SIL funds, and will also come to Council later this month for final sign-off. And I hope that fellow members join me in supporting this fantastic community-led project and support all the recommendations today.
Fabulous. Do we have any comments? Well, in that case, I think, James, you've moved the proposal. I'm happy to second, as I think it's really excellent. You know, it's, as you say, fantastic partnership working, but also I think it is worth noting the dedication of the Spark trustees and campaigners there, who've managed to raise £250,000 towards this, which is pretty astonishing. But Brendan, before you have something to add?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great story. In general principle, then, with similar facilities around the county, if they can get it together to raise that sort of money, would you be open to having SIL funding available? Obviously, I'm just talking theoretically here and nothing specifically. I don't want to hold you to do anything, but that is open to other communities to do the same thing.
Absolutely, and there's a SIL has been discussed a lot earlier, but I think what wasn't mentioned is Transformation Committee having a task and finish on restructuring the way SIL is allocated and how that whole system might work. I think there's some big issues with it at the moment, but I'll hand over to James for the sort of leisure specific question.
Yeah, and thank you. To sort of specify, I think Councillor Thomas raised earlier about Much Wenlock. That's a similar story of using SIL money to try and protect this asset. And we hope that we can approach a similar case in Claybury Mortimer that I know one of your members also represents. We're happy to talk about any options to keep these facilities open, and we see SIL as a major way of trying to do this, to provide money that we do have, that maybe the revenue can come from elsewhere.
Fantastic, thank you.
Phyllis, well, as we have a proposer and seconder, I'll move to all in favour. Shall we recover our leader?
Right, thank you. In which case, we now move on then to the application by West Felton Parish Council for their neighbourhood, to consider a neighbourhood area plan. And David is gone. So that means, who's doing this one? You are. Okay. James.
Thank you. A bit of a shorter one this time. So the new administration actively encourages as many parish and town councils to seek this step towards developing neighbourhood plans to give local people more say in the future development of their communities. And therefore, I'm happy to propose that we accept this recommendation contained in this report as far as West Felton Parish Council.
I've got a seconder. Yes. Does anyone want to ask any questions? In which case, I will assume you're all voting for it. Move it on. Thank you. So that's item 15. Finish. So item 16 is the exclusion of press and the public. So I'm very sorry, those of you who are not members of the council need to leave. To resolve that in accordance with the provision of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, paragraph 10.4 of the Council's Access to Information Rules, the public and press are excluded from the meeting in consideration of the following item. So I've done all of that and I take it we're offline.